Hey Mustangs, in this video we're going to take a look at why cells are so small. Now this can be a challenging one, so we're going to try to break it down into the most simplest terms possible, but we're going to see that it all boils down to a few key points in the end. So, why are cells so small? Why aren't we one big giant cell rolling around everywhere instead of a whole bunch of trillions of cells making up one single multicellular organism? So what it comes down to is surface area to volume ratios. So if we take a look at our definition here, surface area to volume ratio is the amount of surface area per unit volume. So the amount of surface area, the whole outside of an object, compared to its volume on the inside. Now, what we've found in the studies that we've done is that smaller cells have larger surface area to volume ratios, and we found that that is better. So again, small cells have large surface area to volume ratios, so larger surface area compared to volume, and we found that that is better. So we know that, but what does that really mean? We want to find out, why is that better? Why is it better to have a large surface area to volume ratio, and why is it better for cells to be small instead of larger? So if we take a look here, it's all about maximizing the surface area. More surface area equals more cell membrane. Now, if you think about it, what does the cell membrane do? The cell membrane controls what goes in and out of the cell. So if you have a larger surface area, a very large surface area, you're creating the maximum amount of space possible for you to exchange materials. So if we take a look at our cell membrane here, so our cell membrane, it has the lipids where the nonpolar, hydrophobic, small molecules are going to squeeze through the lipids. You have your integral proteins that are transport proteins that allow specific molecules to go in and out of the membrane. So if you have more cell membrane, that means you have more space to exchange things. You're going to have more of these protein molecules. You're going to have more lipids for other molecules to squeeze through. So by increasing your surface area, by having a large surface area, that is going to be favorable, so you have more space to exchange materials. Okay? It's about the cell's needs. So if we take a look down here, so cellular needs, it's about what the cells need to get in. So cells need to constantly get an influx of oxygen and nutrients into the cell and to release waste out of the cell. The primary way of doing that is things like diffusion. Right? So if we increase the surface area, that makes more space for us to actually go through those processes, to actually exchange those materials. More oxygen, more carbon dioxide, more oxygen in, more carbon dioxide out, more nutrients in, more waste out. So bigger surface area, that's key. More space to get things done. Now, if we take a look here, we did these agar cubes in class, and what you see is the smaller sizes, which represent smaller cells, have greater surface area to volume ratios compared to the larger ones. And when it comes to diffusion, the ability of these molecules to get in, if they're held in the solution for the same amount of time for diffusion to occur, what we find is that the smaller cells are just the right size to allow the molecules to diffuse in quite rapidly to reach the center. So what we want is a small volume. If you have a large volume, it's going to take longer to reach the center of that volume from the outside. And that's what we can actually see. We can actually demonstrate that by using those agar cubes. So the small one, in the same amount of time, about 6 to 7 minutes, reached all the way. It was able to diffuse. The molecules were able to diffuse all the way to the center of that. Whereas if you look at the larger ones, it barely got into the cell. You could see that it didn't even get into the center. So if this was an actual cell, it didn't get the oxygen and nutrients that it needed if we were waiting for it to diffuse. So you don't want a very large volume, because large volumes need more materials and it takes longer. So what we can say is that smaller cells with the larger surface area to volume ratio are more efficient at getting in the oxygen and nutrients that they need towards that center of the cell, so that way the whole cell gets everything it needs, and even efficient in getting waste out, because getting waste from the center of the cell to the outside of the cell can happen very quickly too. So smaller cells are more efficient at removing the waste and taking in the oxygen and the nutrients. All right. Now cells have evolved to take advantage of surface area without increasing volume in large degrees. So here, the red blood cell, they're flat discs. This is going to maximize surface area. This is going to have a very large surface area to volume ratio because the area on the outside compared to the volume, think about that, it's almost a flattened disc. So there's not a lot of volume on the inside. So this is going to be able to exchange oxygen in this case, to get oxygen very rapidly into the red blood cell, so that way it can bind to the hemoglobin and then be transported to all the cells around the body, and then even to release the oxygen very quickly as well. So here, this is a really good shape. So it's evolved into this shape. So that way it's really quick in exchanging materials. So it's become very efficient. It has a very large surface area to volume ratio, especially compared to like a sphere. A sphere of the same size, it would have a smaller surface area to volume ratio because the volume, if you extend that out, if you blew it up like that, the volume would be a lot more. So it would take longer for things to get into the center of that cell versus this flattened disc that we see here, much quicker, more efficient that way. Inside of our intestines, we also have ways of increasing surface area without greatly increasing volume. So inside of our intestine cells, you'll notice this bottom portion here looks like normal cells, but then you have these like thin hair-like structures that extend up. By creating these hair-like structures we call microvilli, it increases surface area without drastically increasing the volume. So this is very efficient. We have more surface area to absorb nutrients. And since this is our small intestine here, you're looking at all the foods that you've eaten, absorbing it. So you've created more surface area, more places for food to actually get absorbed. All right, the last one here, the last main example here is going to be root hairs. So root hairs found on the roots of plants, these cells have elongated flat sections that extend outward. Now once again, by extending out into these long flat extensions here, we are increasing surface area without greatly increasing volume. Because if you think about it, if it's a long thin piece, the volume isn't going to be very great. So from the surface, the outside of that root hair, it's going to be very quick for water and other minerals in the soil to be absorbed into those root hairs and then taken into the plant. So these root hairs, being longer, skinnier, increase surface area without increasing volume. So you have a very large surface area to volume ratio, and it can absorb water and other minerals and stuff from the ground a lot quicker. So if we take a look down here, it says increased efficiency of materials exchanged. So by creating these flattened discs and these thin extensions, we can increase efficiency of exchanging materials because you have a large surface area to do that. So you get more oxygen and nutrients in, and you get more waste out efficiently. All right, so two big ideas to remember. Small cells are the best. Okay, so small cells have larger surface area to volume ratios, which is a really good thing. So here we have a 6:1 ratio. That's a large surface area to volume ratio compared to a 3:1 ratio. So if these were two different cells, this one would be more efficient at exchanging materials, and this one would be less efficient. The large surface area to volume ratios also allow for better efficiency of exchange. Okay? So large surface area to volume, more efficient at exchanging materials. Therefore, we say small cells are more efficient than larger cells. So small cells more efficient in the end.